Well, good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday, the 16th, isn't it? Tuesday, the 16th of July, 2024. Let me know that you can see me and hear me. That's always a big help to me. To know that I'm not talking to myself as I usually do throughout the entire day, because that's what old people do. Um, yeah, nobody said anything yet, so I don't know if I'm live or not. In the side chat, I mean. Excuse me. Oh, there's Alan. Thank you. Thanks, Alan. All right, this is another experiment, like the Thursday night, late night with Lovecraft eZine, and that took off. I actually didn't really think that it would. Um, hey, and my wife is watching from Florida. She's on vacation with my son in Florida at her sister's. So I'm glad. And nothing for you. What do you mean? Hey, Mitch, Alan. So I'm going to give a couple of minutes for everyone to wander in. But yeah, I titled this little slice of Halloween. Now, I'm in Texas and it's been terribly hot here. Um, and I hear that it's been hot all around the country too. So, um, yeah, tell me what the weather is like where you are, but it couldn't be, the weather could not be further away from Halloween than this, could it? Shadow on the Glass, Jonathan Howard. Oh yeah, I think I've read another book or two by Jonathan Howard quite a couple, at least 4 or 5 years ago. So everything sound okay? Danielle said there was a bit of a delay, but I'm not sure what she means. But let me know if I sound okay, Alan. Again. All right, so I just thought, the weather could not be more unlike Halloween, which to me, man, sorry, something around here is really giving me allergies, my voice and everything. But anyway, the weather could not be further away from Halloween, which to me, Halloween weather is, I don't know, maybe like in the 40s, and you've got a gentle rain or a mist coming down, and you can smell people, their fireplaces and everything around the neighborhood. So, oh, thanks, honey. And hey, Mark, Angus. So that to me is Halloween weather, right? Um, so I thought, you know what? Fuck the weather. We're gonna do a Halloween thing. So I've got two things, and we'll see if I get them both read tonight. If not, 'cause I don't want to keep you up too late. But if not, I will do one today and one tomorrow. So I've talked to you before about the Night Country by Stuart Onan. Yep, always Halloween season. Hey, Mark. This is a beautiful edition. I think I've showed it to you guys before. But I asked Stuart if he would mind me reading the first chapter of this book. If you haven't read it, you should. It's not available on Kindle, or at least it wasn't the last time I looked. So I think I'm going to start with that. And then my friend and co-panelist Matthew Carpenter, several years ago, uh, at the end of Necronomicon, he gave me this as a gift. And I read, quite a few stories on the flight home. And one of them, I did not know S.P. Miskowski, S.P. Miskowski, sorry, S.P. at the time, and I read this story. Hopefully, it's not reversed, but it's called "Death and Disbursement" by S.P. Miskowski. So if I don't get to that one tonight, I'm definitely going to read it tomorrow night. And what happened was I had a layover. So I mean, we were Facebook friends, but I didn't really know her, how that goes. And I sent her a Facebook message and told her how wonderful I thought her story was. And that was the beginning of my friendship with her and her husband, Corey Herndon, um, who I did a Patreon podcast with Mark and Alan Hughes the other day. So there's that. Anyway, that's how I met S.P. Miskowski. So all right. So I've been so sick. The last couple of days I've just spent just in bed. Couldn't I didn't know which end was up. And I just basically slept the entire time. And I'm starting to feel better today. So I'm glad of that. Um, if you're new here now or watching later, the idea behind this Tuesday night horror reading is that, of course, you can listen to horror stories wherever, all over YouTube, all over the internet. You can listen to someone who's reading you a horror story. But someone reading a horror story to you live and other people are listening live at the same time, I don't really see that being done. If it is, I've missed it. But I just thought it's kind of a sit around the campfire, the virtual campfire, the Lovecraft eZine virtual campfire, and read to you guys. So, um, you guys, like I said, this is an experiment. So you guys will be the ones that decide if you want this to continue or not. If you're watching later, you can't type in the sidebar, but uh, comment down below and tell me if you're going to be here every Tuesday night. You can if you want me to keep doing it, or if it's just kind of like I like the Sunday and I like the Thursday, but I could take or leave this. That's fine too. Um, just let me know. So, oh, one more thing before I start reading. You guys know how much I love Charles Grant, right? This is not available uh, on Kindle. I wish it was. I like to do highlighting. But it's called Scream Quietly, The Best of Charles L. Grant, forward by Stephen King. And I've read a lot of Charles Grant stories, obviously, but I didn't know this existed. And so I I plunked down a little bit of change and bought this because I couldn't not buy it. Most of the time when I'm buying a book online, it's the $1.99 um, deal of the day kind of thing. That's how I buy most of my books. But Charles L. Grant is probably one of my top five favorite um, authors. Bradbury is up there, of course, and I don't know who the other three would be. I'll have to think about it. So anyway, I asked Stuart if I could read the first chapter of his book, Night Country, and he said yes. I wanted to do it because it's absolutely just dripping in Halloween. Oh, thanks, guys. You like this concept? It's just absolutely Halloween. And, you know, I don't think I've ever read something that spoke to me so clearly uh, about how I feel about Halloween. Autumn, but Halloween specifically, but autumn. And the book is set in, in New England in the United States, and it's set about the time it was written, which was I think like the early 2000s, maybe the mid 2000s. Let's see here. This one doesn't help me. But yeah, and you'll hear mentioned, you'll hear video stores mentioned, things like that. So you know it's not set today. So I will do my best to get through this without too many hiccups from being sick. Oh, what a great introduction too. All right, there's a couple of quotes at the beginning of the book. Is it possible to feel love for a side street without sidewalks, for parked cars and wooden houses? Theodore Wiesner. And then Kurt Cobain, a quote that he included, I hate myself and want to die. Now this, I'll read you what this book is about, and then I'll start reading the chapter. At midnight on Halloween, in a cloistered New England suburb, a car carrying 5 teenagers leaves a winding road and slams into a tree, killing 3 of the passengers. One escapes unharmed, another suffers severe brain damage. A year later, summoned by the memories of those closest to them, the 3 who died come back on a last chilling mission among the living. A strange and unsettling ghost story, the night country creeps through the leaf-strewn streets and quiet cul-de-sacs of a bedroom community, reaching into the desperately connected yet isolated lives of 3 people changed forever by the accident. Um, that's most of it. And what it is that on Halloween night, these 5 kids were in an automobile wreck because they were being kids, and you know how that goes. And so the book is set exactly a year later. And the chapter titles are all Halloween movies. All right, so I'm going to start. This is such a great edition. And huge thanks to Stuart Onan for allowing me to read this. All right, title of this chapter, Something Wicked. Come, do you hear it? The wind murmuring in the eaves, scouring the bare trees. How it howls, almost musical, a harmony of old moans. The house seems to breathe, an invalid. Leave your scary movie marathon. This is better than TV. Leave the lights out. The blue glow follows you down the hall. Go to the window in the unused room, the cold seeping through the glass. The moon is risen, caught in nodding branches. The image holds you, black trunks backlit, one silver ray fallen across the deck, beckoning. It's a romance, this invitation to lunacy, elemental yet forbidden, tempting, something remembered in the blood. Don't you ever wonder? Don't you want to know? Come then, come with us out into the night. Come now, America the lovesick, America the timid, the blessed, the educated. Come stalk the dark back roads and stand outside the bright houses, calm as murderers in the yard, quiet as deer. Come, you slumberers, you lumps, arise from your legion of sleep and fly over the wild woods. Come, all you dreamers, all you zombies, all you monsters. What are you doing anyway? Paying the bills, washing the dishes, waiting for the doorbell. Come on, take your keys, leave the bowl of candy on the porch, put on the suffocating mask of someone else, and breathe. Be someone you don't love so much for once. Listen, like the children, we only have one night. Hope you guys are enjoying this. It'll be fun, trust me. We're not going to get caught. It's a game anyway, a masquerade. This is the suburbs. Nothing happens here. So come, friends, strangers, lovers, neighbors. Come out of your den with the big screen TV. Come out of your warm house and into the cool night. Smell the wet leaves, crunched, crushed to mush on the driveway, a stale mix of dust and coriander in the wind. It's the best time of year up here, the only season you want from us. Our pastoral past, witch hunts and wood smoke, the quaintly named deer in mossy churchyards. Never mind that it's all gone. The white picket fences, easy to clean vinyl, the friendship quilts stitched in the Dominican. This is still a New England garden green, veined with black rivers and massacres. Keep coming, past the last square of sidewalk, past the new developments and their sparse lawns, past the strip malls with the Friendlies and the Chili's and the Gap, the CVS and the Starbucks and the Blockbuster, the KFC and the Chinese, their signs dying comets in the night, traffic signals blinking. Come back through Stagecoach Lane and Blueberry Way and Old Mill Place, solving the labyrinth of raised ranches where the last kids, too old but not wanting to grow up just yet, spill from minivans like commandos, charging across lawns for the front door, their bags rattling. The candy is serious here, full-sized Hershey bars and double Reese's cups. No, there's no time to stop and no need. That's in the past. The happy childhood we all should have had, or did have, half missed, didn't appreciate. Keep your mask on. Say something now, it would give us all away. We're past that. The grinning pumpkins left behind, the stoops and warm windows, the reaching streetlights. Out here, there's nothing but muddy creeks and marshland, stone fences guarding the back pasture gone wild. Here, you can still get lost if you want to. So come ride with us, driving the night in circles, the trees startled in our headlights. What, you don't recognize the road, the blind curves and crumbled cut banks twisting so that we lean into each other, intimate, even cozy, laughing as we crush the one on the end against the locked door? Remember the incense of cigarettes, the little attendant rituals? Make your fingers as scissors and bum one. It's okay, just don't pocket my lighter. The music's too loud to talk, and there's no reason. We're happy trapped in ourselves in the night, this illusion of endlessness, high school, the freedom of wheels. Be 17 again, and ready for the world to love you. Feel the speed through the floor, the air lipping the windows. We're cutting corners, bowing the yellow line, floating over bumps. A deer, and that would be the end of us, yet the driver only goes faster. The woods dark as space, still wilderness. That's good, Mark. Look around now. Do you remember any of us? Your face has changed. Ours are the same. Frozen in yearbook photos in the local papers, nudged up against the school board news, the football scores, the library book sale. One week where history martyred gods and then forgotten. Our names, you can't even make a guess. It's those kids who died, but you remember what happened. So you know where we're going. Have you seen it? Not just driven by, but have you stopped and gotten out and looked at the tattered bows and ribbons, the sagging mylar balloons and greening pictures sealed in freezer bags, The plastic crosses and browning flowers, the notes written in girlish script, illegible now, pledging to remember us forever. Have you searched the trunk for scars, amazed at nature since there's not a mark on it? What do you guys think of this? Of course not. Even if you were from around here, you'd be used to it. Maybe even annoyed at the cards and flowers, the shameless sentimentality of teenagers. Don't worry, they'll graduate and move away. Then our younger brothers and sisters, off to college and jobs and marriage, leaving our parents, a mother who dedicates herself to a larger cause, a father who turns inward and strange. One wraps herself in bitterness, another discovers religion. Do they change into gaudy polyester snowbirds or let the house fall around them? Whatever. Everyone forgets. You have to. Isn't that true? Isn't that proof that time is merciful and not the opposite? Don't answer. You'll have time to think about it later. An entire night. Eternity. Halloween comes once a year. Can you breathe inside that thing? It's not too hot, is it? But look, we're almost there, where the curve bears down on the crossroads. There's no other car, no bad luck, just the tree, the slick of wet leaves on the road, the romance of speed. It's the time of year that kills us, a lack of friction combined with a sideways vector, loose and centrifugal. The police will reconstruct it, pacing off the distances with a limp measuring tape. There's my lighter by the red X, taking statements from the people on scene, photocopying the long report for the courts and insurance companies. Someone you love has read it or not read it. The contents, life-changing and unimportant. Checks deposited, money spent. From the back seat, you can't see the tree, or only at the last minute. If you happen to be back seat driving, checking shit, slow down. There's a second in which we realize we're not going to make the curve. All of us, even the most hopeful. The sound of the road, so constant, disappears, vacuumed into black silence. Light comes Light comes back from the trunk, as if the tree has flashed its bright, warning lights off at us in the last second. It's a game of chicken. Oh shit, Danielle says. You feel it because she's on your lap, your arms wrapped around her ribs, her perfumed thinness. Toe, you fuck. That's Kyle right beside you. Who? Toe, Kyle, and Danielle. See, you've already forgotten. What's my name? What's yours? It's a trick, not a treat. But the tree seems to leap out, seems to drive right at us, white as a semi. Scream if you want to. After the first few times, you'll realize it's useless. You'll remember us and remember to say goodbye. You'll grow as sentimental as our friends and make this night and this drive stand for our lives. The five of us inseparable. So keep your eyes open. Don't cover your face as we leave the road and shoot through the high weeds, sifted by the grill like wheat meeting a thresher. Remember what happens, how it sounds and smells and tastes. Enjoy the ride. Didn't I tell you? There's a reason we call on you. Why this night comes again and again. Bad dream within a dream. You think it's torture, but you know it's justice. You know the reason. You're the lucky one, remember? you live. So that is chapter 1 of The Night Country. So hope you guys enjoy that. I want to refresh my memory on how long Death and Disbursement is. What time is it? What time? Oh, okay. 25 after the hour. All right, let's take a vote. Do you want me to read Death and Disbursement now or next week? I've got it right here. And Matt bought this book for me before it was too hard to get or too expensive. I think it's pretty expensive now. Oh, my wife says now, so that out. Excuse me. That outvotes everybody else. Oh, good. I was wondering about my voice, Alan. Thanks. All right, here we go. Death and Disbursement by S.P. Miskowski. Isn't it strange the number of trivial things we can't help remembering? Useless phone numbers of dead relatives, songs we listened to in high school. Compare this to the multitude of cherished memories our brains will jettison before we die. I often wonder what purpose memory serves. Are we only collecting and sorting bits of information to help us get through another day? I didn't understand that. My phone is yelling at me. Then why is it at this time of year when children dress up as ghouls and monsters and their parents worry about the dangerous people they might run into while trick-or-treating, my mind always wanders back to Garrison Reynolds? I worked at Northwestern Residential Life for 6 years in a stuffy, file and paper strewn office in downtown Seattle. During the first 2 years, I handled disbursement payments. I have no idea how many accounts I processed during my tenure. Most of the clients must be dead by now. No Rest, as we called it, started out as an insurance firm in the 1950s, building a modest reputation during the post-war housing boom. By the 80s, when they had decided to branch out, regulations restricting stock investment to brokers had loosened up. Sorry, like a lot of corporations with only a sideways connection to the portfolio management. No idea what that means. No Rest seized the opportunity. Management created a sales team to specialize in retirement plans for K through 12 school teachers, and the company made a fortune. By the time I worked there in the late 90s, the heat wave of ridiculous prosperity was winding down. Sales incentives had dwindled from the first-class vacations in Bangkok to a weekend of whale watching in Port Townsend. Other signs of trouble were emerging, rumors of financial impropriety coiling upward to the executive level. Most of us didn't care. We were making a living. The rumors only mattered to people who could recall the company's original mission statement, something lofty about hard work paying off. I will tell you guys one thing. Uh, because of the flu or whatever it was I had, you're not getting my best tonight, but that's okay. We're all still around the virtual campfire, right? That's what matters. Many of our clients had difficulty remembering my name. They grappled with health concerns and family issues that had festered over the years. They struggled to communicate through a haze of medication and dementia. In my mind, most of these people are now indistinguishable from one another. Yet I remember Garrison Reynolds and what happened to him with absolute clarity. That year, the Midwest was hit by a freak snowstorm a few days before our Halloween. Before Halloween. For once, I did not mind living in Seattle, where the rainy season ran from October until early July. Cable news channels covered the escalating storm with on-the-scene reporters bundled in parkas, their eyes squinting almost shut in the blistering cold, voices intoning the latest weather statistics with an underscoring shiver. One reporter was killed when a van overturned and skidded up onto the shoulder of the road where he stood waiting for his camera crew to set up. Thanks, Mark. At least 1,000 times the network repeated video coverage of the reporter turning and catching only a shadow of the massive white wall sliding towards him. He seemed to be drawing breath. He seemed to be drawing breath, presumably to scream before he was obliterated by snow. A few weeks earlier, I had chosen death over disbursement, and for good reasons. First and foremost, I disliked talking to retirees on the phone all day. It was a job I'd survived for 2 years with plenty of coffee and too many snacks, and by using a characteristic I'm not proud to admit, actually it was a skill, one I developed while my mother was in the last phase of her illness. When necessary, I could withdraw from lost my place. When necessary, I could withdraw from another person, swiftly and silently gliding backwards into the shadows. From there, I could peer out at the world and feel nothing. I became a ghost, a presence with no connection to the situation. This made me a prime candidate to deal with the tough cases. The crying octogenarian who insisted her dead sister was stealing her monthly checks. The schizophrenic man who inherited his father's account and called every other month to register a change of address. People told me I was good at customer service, a real people person, and I accepted the compliment. But it wasn't true. I was patient and helpful with each client because they didn't matter to me. My aim was to do my job well, not save the world. At the beginning of my third year, disbursement hired a new gal, Bonnie, to answer the phones. Bonnie was given the early shift, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., to cover calls from back east. Another associate handled the 9 to 5 shift. Bonnie was needed because I'd been promoted to fill a gap on the death team. I tried to conceal my relief. After you've spent a couple of years listening to elderly people gripe about their rotten health and hateful children, it's a luxury to sit quietly in a private cubicle filling out paperwork to make their post-mortem retirement funds the property of those same hateful children. Best of all, no one wanted death. New associates found it boring. I could pace myself because there was no competition for the job. Oh, and by the way, I love you, Daniel. High on the list of reasons I was happy to leave disbursement and take up the surprising backlog of death was Garrison Reynolds. In many ways, a typical client, Reynolds called disbursement at least 4 times a month, and every call lasted half an hour. No matter how often I reminded him of the due date for his retirement check, the 30th, he would begin dialing on the 20th or the 25th, all because his payments had arrived a week early one time, and he wanted to know why it wasn't early every month. Well, his impatience wasn't unusual. Quite a few of our clients led a frugal existence. Some lived desperately, the ones who had failed to invest enough cash before time ran out, and they were pushed away by the employers they'd counted on for a living and a purpose. Reynolds wasn't desperate. His mortgage was paid. He and his wife had no children. He didn't call disbursement out of need. He called because he had no friends. No one wanted to talk to him. He had no hobbies aside from harassing the people who handled what was left of his money. Yes, I understand. I get it. I do. Bonnie's voice carried through the wall to my cubicle. I could hear the strain when she stammered, "We mailed the end of month check 2 days ago, but we have no control over the weather, sir. Sir, we're dealing with a very unusual natural event. Sir, if we replace the payment now, it will just be delayed like the first one. Your best bet is to wait for the original check to arrive." She paused, and I imagined the faint buzz of Garrison Reynolds on the line. In his gruff intonations, he was no doubt telling Bonnie what she could do with her opinion. In Seattle, the season was in full swing. We'd had 4 consecutive days of rain, not refreshing or cleansing, but drizzling, a perpetual cosmic leak over the industrial gray city. On the storefront windows, the scarecrows and black cats stood out in the glaucous wash. Doorsteps were cluttered with jack-o'-lanterns. At night, the streets, ordinarily etched blue-black, were softened by the dull glow of orange lights and candles in windows. The Midwest snow and ice seemed far away, telescoped, a vague human interest story flickering on TV screens. More than the usual water tonight. "Sir," Bonnie said. Her voice cracked. "Sir, if you're going to speak to me like that, I have no choice. Mr. Reynolds? Mr. Reynolds!" I have to hang up now. "Sir, I have to hang up." The next sound was the receiver snapping into place, cutting off the tirade, but not soon enough to prevent a crying jag. I rolled my eyes when I heard Bonnie whip a couple of tissues out of the Kleenex boxes on her desk and trudge around the corner to my cubicle. "Kate," she said. Her lips were quivering from the struggle to stay calm. "I am sorry to interrupt you." I looked up from the files and forms on my desk and refrained from laughing. Bonnie was still new. Maybe she would toughen up. Otherwise, she would surely have to find another job. Talking to depressed or angry seniors and hearing the stray facts of their ever diminishing lives would kill her if she didn't put some distance between herself and their misery. "Bonnie, you can't take it personally," I said. She drew a halting breath. She dabbed the corners of her eyes with the tissues crumpled in her hand. "He asked me if I'm retarded," she said. "And, well, we don't even use that word in my family or any of the other words that he used." "Well, that's what you mean by personal," I explained. "It doesn't matter how you feel or what you did in your family, what you do in your family. The person on the phone is a client. Nothing he says to you should be taken to heart. Just listen to his complaint and reassure him. If you decide his case warrants a replacement check, forward the details to one of the clerks in accounting." "His check isn't due until Thursday," she said, fighting a second wave of tears. "Great," I told her. "Don't worry about it. He's called twice this morning. He said he's going to call every day because he already knows his check is going to be late because of the storm. He doesn't even watch the news. He says his check is late every month and it's my fault." "All he has to do is look out the window," I said. "The storm's knocked out mail delivery. As of last night, even the FedEx office had to shut down. Oh, God, Bonnie said. What am I going to do? Kirk is out sick with the flu. He may not be back all this week. Every time Reynolds calls, he'll get me. I was still young enough back then to feel a sliver of contempt for Bonnie in her sprawling Eddie Bauer sweater, her olive drab skirt and leggings. When she dressed for that morning, she must have believed herself to be fortified against a world she feared at every turn. Fine, forward his calls to me, I said. Only Garrison Reynolds, and only this week. And because I'd written her off in that instant, deciding she would never succeed in disbursement, I returned to my paperwork and ignored her blubbery thanks. On the bus ride home that night, bone tired from all the tedious facets of my job, I stared out the window at wet, black streets. House after house went gliding by, glowing with amber light, decked with festive pumpkins and cartoon witches. The homes looked warm and snug, but who knows what went on inside them. The smooth hiss of electric cable overhead and the gentle rocking of the bus lulled me. In the dim alleys, neighborhood cats traced a path from doors and gates to trash dumpsters and back. In my nearly dreaming state, I imagined the shadows growing long and narrow, then separating into a multitude of dark figures, scuttling between muted streetlights. I almost expected Bonnie to call in sick the next day, but she sat straight-backed and smiling at her desk when I arrived. Apparently, my taking over of her least favorite client gave her a lift. I said good morning and she waved one hand toward a plate of muffins. These are home-baked pumpkin spice, she said. Have one. Have two. Sorry, I told her. I don't think I can eat one more thing made with pumpkin this year. I'd barely sat down and arranged my desk for the day when the first call came through, a transfer from Bonnie. As I picked up the receiver, I heard her voice on the other side of the cubicle wall. Sorry, Katie. Northwestern Residential Life, death claims. How can I help you? I said automatically. There was a distinct pause on the line. Then came the sputter of an old man clearing his throat. What? He asked. What did you say? Sorry, Mr. Reynolds, I replied. This is Katie. I've been promoted to another team. How can I help you today? What kind of team? He asked, his voice full of phlegm. Am I saying that right? Phlegm? Yeah, Mark, she really makes it real. You're right. What kind of team? He asked. I'm on a different team now. I switched from disbursement to another team. Why don't you call it a department? He said. A team is a department, I said. It's the same thing. What can I do for you today? Well, if it's the same goddamn thing, why the hell don't you call it the same thing? This was his typical strategy: bait and attack, lure and argue. Mr. Reynolds, I said gently and firmly, how can I help you? What happened to that other girl? She got sick of me, didn't she? I was holding the receiver in my left hand. This made it possible to continue filling out forms with my right. Mr. Reynolds, you're a valued client. We'd never get sick of you, I said. You're a goddamn liar. He cleared his throat again, a hacking, vicious wave ending in a cough. I waited until he stopped. Aren't we all? I asked. The hacking noise rose again and expanded. It could have been wheezing, but once it developed a rhythm, I realized he was wheezed laughing, like a despicable cartoon character. I waited until he calmed down. A liar is a lavish of oaths, he said at last. Where's my check? I've seen the weekly report, I said, and your payment was mailed on time. I confirmed the date with accounting. So where is it? He asked. Tomorrow is the 30th, I reminded him, and the 30th is your due date. Don't give me that bunk. Remember when you signed your contract to begin your payout? I said. The date that you chose was the 30th. Since today is the 29th, your check isn't due. If it doesn't arrive tomorrow, please let us know. A rustle on the line, followed by a loud click, let me know that Garrison Reynolds was gone. I sat staring at the small ceramic tableau on my desk. Pardon me. A Cadillac containing three manic skeletons dressed in dark clothing, holding down a figure with flailing arms and legs. Meanwhile, a crimson Santa with silver horns sat laughing at the wheel. The tableau had been a Day of the Dead gift from an artist my mother used to know in Austin. It was the only office decoration I ever displayed on Halloween. Its bright colors gave me a lift. Something in the devil's expression was strangely amusing. Go to hell, Mr. Reynolds, I said under my breath. The rest of the day was quiet. I was able to hit my average in processing claims, so I treated myself to a donut day cruller at afternoon break. The sugar made me dopey. I almost fell asleep on the bus ride home. On Thursday, when I arrived at the office, Bonnie was absent from her desk. I imagined that she had spent the first 2 hours of her day apologizing to Midwest clients for the delay in their payments. 2 lines blinked on her phone. The Kleenex box lay on its side near a scattering of M&Ms. I took off my raincoat and hit one of the blinking buttons. Northwest Residential Life Disbursement, I said. Would you hold, please? I put the client on hold before he could speak. I hit the second button and repeated the greeting, then placed the second client on hold. Finally, I answered the first call. Residential Life Disbursement, how can I help you? A damp wheeze identified the caller. He seemed to gather his words from a distance. What happened? Garrison Reynolds asked. Did you get demoted? He recognized my voice. I squared my shoulders. I forced a smile. Clients, my training had taught me, can hear a smile in the tone of your voice. The facial muscles contract even if the expression is false. Good morning, Mr. Reynolds, I said. It's lunchtime where I live, he said, and there's no check in the mailbox. Right, I said, visualizing the address in our database. Illinois, you're in the thick of it. How are you doing? I'd be doing a lot better with a check in my hand. You said to wait. You wasted my time. Something caught my eye, and I turned to see Bonnie striding back from the women's bathroom. She was clutching tissues in both hands, and her face was a patchwork of pink splotches. She must have been crying for a while. She nodded, but avoided making eye contact when she took her seat. Yeah, Mark, that a perpetual cosmic leak. SP is a great writer. She must have been crying for a while. She nodded, but avoided making eye contact when she took her seat. Mr. Reynolds, I said, hold for a moment while I transfer you to my phone, all right? I took my time, putting away my raincoat and settling at my desk. I saw the button light up when Bonnie forwarded the call. I heard her placating the next client in line. I paused for another couple of seconds, hoping in vain that he might give up and go away. All right, then, I said when I picked up the line. What's going on there? Reynolds asked. A goddamn party? I don't want to hear any more music. Stop putting me on hold. Sorry for the delay, I said. You can keep your apology. You and that Asian girl you hired to answer the phone. Among his many charms, Garrison Reynolds could count racism. After a knee-jerk impulse to thwart his assumptions by pointing out that Bonnie's family was Norwegian, I decided to ignore the comment. I'm sure I can answer any questions you have. Good luck, he said. Where's my fucking check? Somewhere in his original file, I'd noticed that he'd been a history teacher at a middle school for 25 years. Wow. I wondered if he'd spoken to students the way that he spoke to us. How much was his wretched personality, and how much of the salty sailor routine was put on for my benefit? Probably only his wife knew the answer. I pitied her. How's the weather in your neighborhood? I asked. What? Is it snowing in your part of Illinois? I said. Hell yes, he said. The whole neighborhood's covered in it. What do you think? Well, Mr. Reynolds, I said, what you can see from your living room window is pretty much the same all over the Midwest at the moment. Even the FedEx office has to shut down for a day. Planes are grounded. Buses have stopped running. And the mail is delayed. The mail is never delayed, he said. What about their motto about rain and sleet? Well, I'm afraid the Postal Service has met its match this year. What are you telling me? He said. This is a regional, possibly national crisis. It affects everyone. So, I had to marvel at the self-involvement of the old man. His little tableau, the little tableau of skeletons holding their captive for the benefit of Satan in the driver's seat, made me smile, a genuine smile this time. No one is getting their mail, I said. If we issued a new payment, you wouldn't receive it. He was silent for a moment. I could hear him murmuring in the background, as if he held his hand over the mouthpiece while he spoke to someone. Mr. Reynolds? I'll call you back, he said, and he hung up. I barely had time to feel fortunate before the light began to blink again. From the other cubicle, I heard Bonnie's apology. Sorry, Katie. I'm so sorry. He's back, she warned as I answered the phone. Mr. Reynolds, I said by way of greeting. Listen, he said, his voice reduced to a deep rasp. I have to have that money. But I just explained. I need it, he said. It's mine and I want it right now. Right now. I would help you if I could, I said. Didn't I replace a check that was lost in the mail last year? So you know I only want to do what's right. Shut up, he snarled. Excuse me? Stop talking and talking, he said. His voice broke. I don't have time. I need my money right now. It belongs to me and you owe it to me. Mr. Reynolds, if there were any possible way. No, he was shouting again. I need it this afternoon before it gets dark. They're coming back. I stopped staring at the little crimson devil with his silver horns and his grin of cruel delight. Mr. Reynolds, I said, could I speak to your wife for a moment? Why? Oh, I said, mind racing through a series of flimsy excuses. I was reading your file yesterday and I realized that we don't have her social security number listed. What difference does that make? If his nasty idiosyncrasies had been a precursor to Alzheimer's, maybe his wife should know about these multiple calls and complaints. I decided to lie to him. Before I can issue a new check, I need to fill in the information gap. Why? He asked. You've been paying me all this time without it. Yes, I said, but now I know it's missing from the account. That's goddamn ridiculous. I want my money. No, I said. Might as well make the lie as big as it needed to be. I decided. If I can't speak to your wife, I'm afraid I'll have to cancel your payment. What? What? He was sputtering. You can't keep my money. I earned all of it. I spent years and years with those little monsters. Oh, yeah, I bet those kids really enjoyed him. Uh, Alan, I was thinking the same thing. This is set in the 90s. And I was also thinking of the Hush episode in Buffy, season 4. That wouldn't work today. Everyone would be texting each other. I like stories set in the 70s and the 90s. I don't know why. It's probably one of the reasons. The line went dead. Bonnie stepped into my cubicle. She had a strange expression now that her tears had dried. What was all that about? She asked. I'm not sure he's lucid, I told her. Oh my God, Bonnie shook her head. Has he had a stroke? Good night, Mark. Look, I said, later on, maybe I'll call his house and try to get a hold of his wife. She should know how irrational he's become. That's so sad. By the way, we've got about 4 more pages of this story, so not much. That's so sad, she said. Do you think she'll have him hospitalized? What a term. The same one I'd used when people asked how my mother was doing in her final weeks. Poor Mr. Reynolds, Bonnie said. It was irritating to make small talk like this about a client Bonnie couldn't handle. While we gossiped, I was losing time I could have spent processing death claims. I started shuffling papers. Bonnie couldn't take the hint. She stepped closer and reached down to touch the Day of the Dead tableau with one index finger. You know, she said, I actually took his first call this morning about 20 minutes before you got here. Why didn't you say so? It would have helped to know he was already wound up. That's just it, she said. I think he was wound up before he talked to me. He screamed at me, so I told him we wouldn't take his call until we calmed down. Well, Christ, Bonnie, I said, thanks for the heads up. Her eyes welled with tears. I snatched the tissue from the box on the file cabinet and handed it to her. She sniffed and caught her breath. Katie, she said, he sounded kind of crazy. He said something was after him. Who? Not who, I think. Not a person. He said it was something hiding in the vacant lot next to his house. It freaked me out, and I hung up on him. I'm so sorry. For the rest of the day, I tried to push those words out of my thoughts. I reviewed notarized proof of identity and papers of attorney from two middle-aged brothers who were having their 80-year-old mother declared incompetent and placed in a nursing home. Placed. That was another one of those polite words. Reynolds didn't call again all day. I didn't try to reach his wife. I decided to let sleeping dogs lie. Every time Bonnie passed my cubicle, she glanced at me with a ghastly expression. I think she mistook for some kind of camaraderie, a sort of we're all in this mess together look. She frowned and shrugged at the same time. I don't know what she hoped to elicit with this ugly pantomime. It didn't matter because we didn't hear from Reynolds again that afternoon. This time, I fell asleep on the bus. October in Seattle is a dark night, pitch black under a slate cover of clouds. Condensation collected in the heated bus and ran in snaky streams down the windows. The throb of the electric cables, the too warm interior of the bus once it filled with bodies, the dark blur of Capitol Hill streets, flashing by, acted like a narcotic on my frayed nerves. I only knew we reached my stop, and my head jerked forward into unconsciousness because the driver knew my schedule. His shout had caught my ear in the middle of a dream. This next part's in italics. The screech of brakes woke me. The driver sat at the front of the bus, looking back over his shoulder at me. "You're here," he said. His voice carried all the way to the back where I sat sprawled between my purse and my canvas grocery bag. "What are you doing?" he asked. I sat up straight, and for the first time it occurred to me. If all of the passengers were gone, we must be at the end of the line, not at my stop. We must have passed my house an hour ago. I was going to point this out, but I was alone, and the lights and heat were off. I tried to calculate how long the warmth sealed inside the bus would last, and this made me drowsy. When I woke up, the bus was freezing, and it was moving. Not forward, but slightly, minutely, side to side. Every window dripped with condensation, and in the center of each one a pair of hands pressed against the glass, pushing in, rocking the bus like a cradle. That was a dream, apparently. When I woke up, another passenger was poking me in the shoulder with an index finger. She had a malicious grin. The driver waited for me to collect myself and amble up the aisle. It felt like an expedition. I had to use my elbows to shove past several men dressed as devils and witches. They laughed good-naturedly. Someone said, "Happy Halloween, ma'am." If I slept at all that night, it was intermittent, with frantic dreams of trains and bus stations, boarding houses without doors, and neighbors I didn't recognize drifting through. Some more italics for you. Nothing was safe. Every drifter stole something, a trunk full of clothes I kept intending to sort, the hummingbirds that gathered around a feeder on the porch in late spring, my mother's silver combs, the Japanese maple in the backyard. When my room was empty except for a sheet on the floor, I lay down and tried to sleep, but my mind raced with dates and times from a half remembered itinerary. I was supposed to be somewhere. It was time to go. Any delay would cause me to miss my connection and then the next one. I tried to stand up, but my body clung to inertia. The floor absorbed my full weight. It brought back those times at the end of yoga class when I dozed off while lying flat on my back. The ground held me. The only thing that got me out of bed and into work the next day was the allure of coffee and Halloween cupcakes supplied by management. They had never missed a holiday, but as the company's value decreased over the ensuing years, the holiday treats would diminish from bakery delicacies to bags of candy purchased in bulk at Costco. The first call came at 9:30. When I heard Garrison Reynolds wheezing, I was glad to be so groggy. My sleep deprivation acted as a sedative to take the edge off his words. The mailman never came, he told me. He sounded stunned, a child like in the face of something he couldn't explain. Yes, I said, that's because of the snow. You're due for warmer temperatures this weekend, Mr. Reynolds. The ice will melt and you'll probably have your check and the rest of your mail on Monday. It's too late now, he said. They're coming back. You lied to me. Mr. Reynolds, I said, would you mind putting your wife on the phone? She's gone. She's outside. There should be a newspaper in the driveway. They stole it. I couldn't tell whether he was telling the truth or describing what he thought was true. When Mrs. Reynolds comes back, I said, will you ask her to give me a call? Comes back? Yes. Tell her I have some questions. Will you do that? She comes back? Yes. They won't stay outside now, he said. You fucked that up. Then he hung up the phone. All day, I anticipated another conversation with Reynolds or his wife or both. I wondered briefly if if Mrs. Reynolds had finally gotten sick of his temper or dementia and left him. But surely a woman who had coped with this man for over 40 years wasn't going to abandon him now. Yet I felt a twinge of guilt when Bonnie wished me good night before she left the office for the weekend. Happy Halloween, she said. Watch out for ghosts and witches and whatever much you call it. I'm dressing as a vampire when I get home. The kids love it. You get a lot of trick-or-treaters in the rain? I asked. Tons. I bought 6 bags of candy to make sure I don't run out. They get so mad when you run out. Do they? Oh, we've got some little devils in my neighborhood, she said. You know, I wonder if that's what old man Reynolds was yelling about. I'll bet he hates this time of year. He doesn't seem very happy. No, I said. Is he okay? Again, I had a twinge of irritation. Bonnie wore a jack-o'-lantern button pinned to her coat. When she moved, the eyes seemed to glow. I'm sure he'll get his check on Monday, I said. And I can't believe any kids will stop by his house in the snow and ice. When I was a kid, we knew all the cranky people on our street and we stayed away. Sure. What? I asked. I don't know. Do you think we should call the police? Why? To stop by and make sure he's okay? I considered Bonnie's wide-eyed expression and decided to lie again. Sure, I said, I'll do that. She waved goodbye even though she was standing right in front of my desk. She was smiling like a child who's just been tucked in after a really good fairy tale. Like most people, Bonnie only wanted to be told that everything was fine. Afternoon crept into dark night. I took the bus home. Opening the front door, I was greeted by the familiar combination of patchouli and mildew. It was a scent that had lingered since my mother occupied the house. Excuse me. There were nights when the hint of patchouli tricked me into thinking that I heard her voice, the voices of her friends murmuring in another room, her lifelong pals with their shoulder-length hair and their poems about the city haunted by spirits. How many hundreds of nights I must have fallen asleep to those whispered tales of loss and longing. 3 children came to my door on Friday night wearing handmade masks. I couldn't tell what they were supposed to be, but I controlled the urge to laugh at their lack of artistic talent. Their parents huddled at the curb, wearing hooded rain jackets and sheepish grins. When the children stopped giggling and went away with their chocolate treasures, I tossed the bag of barely touched candy in the garbage and I went to bed. Twice I woke up thinking the phone was ringing, only to find the sound had carried over from a dream. On Saturday, I shopped and read magazines. On Sunday, the rain stopped for a few hours. Patches of gray and yellow light broke through the clouds. Neighbors appeared on the street, walking dogs, or just enjoying the fresh air. Cable news reported a slight rise in temperatures and the beginning of what they dubbed the big thaw. Rain melted what was left of the premature Midwest snow, and the rest of the country lost interest. The following week, I worked with barely a break. Bonnie never transferred any calls and never stopped by to say hello. That month, I set a new record for claims processing and felt very pleased with my progress. Every night, I took the bus home, watched an hour of mind numbing TV, and fell asleep. I dreamed about the money, excuse me, I dreamed about the bus many times, and when I woke up, I had the sense that I had forgotten something. The more I tried to recall what it was, the more vague my memory became. In early December, several new claims arrived in the mail. One stood out immediately. Before I opened it, I stared at the return address for a long time. Garrison Reynolds, age 73, died October 31st. Cause of death was a self-inflicted shotgun to the head. His primary beneficiary, his wife, was deceased on August 30th, an apparent heart attack. The account and its remaining funds would go to a secondary beneficiary, a nephew in Chicago. I completed the paperwork in less than an hour. There were dozens of claims ahead of this one, but something compelled me to bump it up and get it off my desk. I went home early that day. I drank a cup of chamomile tea. Is that how you say that? I don't think it is. Surrounded by the fragrance of patchouli, I lay in bed all night, listening to the cold rain dripping from the roof to the damp ground. Sometimes I thought I heard a telephone, distant and isolated, as if it rang in a vacant house down the street. That's what you call, uh, damn it, I blanked on the words. You don't know what the hell happened. Right now, if my wife is still watching, she's like, "What? What kind of an ending is that?" Excuse me. I hope you can't hear me crunching ice. Um, Thanks to SP for letting me read that. And if you guys can afford it, October Dreams 2 and the first one, which is thicker than this one, man, it's a doorstop. They're both so great. And what makes this a little bit different from a lot of October, or excuse me, Halloween, um, well, first of all, it's edited by Richard Chismar and Robert Moorish. But interspersed between the stories are several writers. It's called My Favorite Halloween Memory. You know, true Halloween memories from when they were younger. And I don't know, it's really cool to read. And it's a really neat idea. I haven't seen that in other books. Yep, it's sad. I guess the monsters next door got him. Um, and it's that vague kind of story that I like. So, all right, if you have a request, if you'd like me to read a short story, let me know. And if I know the writer, or if he or she is a friend of a friend, then I will read it. I don't ever read anything without permission, or unless it's, you know, man, I'm tired. This flu. Unless it's old enough that permission doesn't matter. Like the first story I read a few weeks ago. So let me know about that, and let me know if you're watching later too. If you want me to keep and continue doing this, I like reading, and I like the reading to you guys. I mean, and I like the thought of it. Like I said, of sitting around the virtual campfire, and we're all listening to the same story at the same time. So thanks, Jakester. I think I probably will continue another. Enough people seem to like it. So I need to figure out a story for next Tuesday, which shouldn't be too hard. Like I said, if you have any requests, let me know. You can just email me, lovecraftezine@gmail.com. That's the best way to contact me. Thanks, Bookmark. He says, well, you guys can see it. I needed that. I think there's something to the live aspect. Yeah, yeah, I really do. So hopefully more people will continue to drop by. This has always been the little podcast that could for years now, and so I'm glad you guys enjoyed this. Thanks so much, and I will see you guys hopefully on Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern, which would be 10 Central and 8 Pacific, for Late Night with Lovecraft eZine, aka, where'd you go, Oreo? Oh, she's sitting in the window. Late Night with Mike and Oreo. So thanks for staying up with me, guys. And honey, I love you. And I hope to see you very, very soon. Good night, everyone.